Good morning. My name is Aaron Hunt. I'm a partner here at Stace Hammond and I head up the Migration Partners immigration team. Just into another update today. It's the 2nd of July. It's a Thursday. There's been a few new bits of news coming out of Immigration New Zealand. I just wanted to give you an update. It's not as big as last week's update. Just a couple of quick pointers. First thing, the only rule change into immigration policy has been around those travelling to New Zealand to via boat, typically those on cargo boats, that sort of thing. Now I'll cover that at the end because it's probably a smaller group affected by that. The more important part now actually is to those who are in New Zealand, foreign nationals who are either having trouble getting back to their home country or having trouble being here and surviving here. Now, of course, the borders into New Zealand are closed, as are the borders to many other countries. If you were in New Zealand and if you're still here working on a work visa, that's fine. But if unfortunately you've lost your role or your visa's coming to an end and you can't get a new visa, which a lot of work visa holders are finding due to the number of people who are now on the market for jobs, the locals, then you need to have a look at a way to get home. Now, first thing you need to do is, if you are in New Zealand needing to leave the country, first of all check your home border restrictions. Can you actually go home? Are the borders closed? Under UN, the United Nations regulations, they should be letting you back into your country of citizenship or residence. But there might likely be a need to self-isolate or quarantine as they are into New Zealand. So best to check that out first so that you go back with that expectation. Second thing, of course, is trying to find a ticket back to home. The number of air flights, flights out of the country have definitely gone down, and the prices because of it have gone up. So there will be the fact that make sure you can get a flight there. Now, if your home isn't a easy flight from New Zealand, if you have to go through another country, check that you're allowed to. A lot of countries still have regulations as to who can go to transit through the country. Australia is one, New Zealand is one. So if you were needing to, say, go through the US or go through parts of Asia, make sure you're actually allowed to. Of course, New Zealand is a smaller country, so a lot of our flights will go via Australia. So make sure you can actually fly through Australia in transit. Otherwise, you may be stuck actually not being able to leave New Zealand. Now, a travel agent will be able to help with information, or actually just Google it. Google will be able to let you know as to what the requirements are. Now, of course, make sure you keep an eye on your flights. There are flights still being cancelled and new flights being brought on. Hopefully the number of cancellations are going down, so you won't be stuck with a ticket you can't use. But that is still going to be an ongoing issue. And make sure you get to the airport on time. Don't leave it to the last moment. Get there at least 3 hours before it, just as a precaution. You'd hate to be going there all planned, ready to go. You've got your visas in place. Get to the airport, get delayed on the way and miss your flight or be prevented from boarding because you're too close to the time you're supposed to fly. So make sure you get there in plenty of time. Now, of course, if you were in the group that had their visas expiring between April 2nd and 9th of July, you got the extension up to 25th of September. If you haven't got the email about that, definitely talk to immigration, talk to us, we can check for you. So your visa should be extended automatically to 25 September. Those are the visas expiring in a week from now or after that point, so 10th of July, your visa is still expiring on the day that it states on your visa. So if you're expiring next week, you haven't applied for a new visa, get onto it immediately. You do not want to run out of visa. You'll be here unlawfully, makes it more difficult to apply for a new visa. Now, of course, I spoke last week about the delays in regards to the skilled migrant EOI draws. The draws are still delayed. There's nothing from the government as to when they will be restarted. It's the thing I get asked the most from clients and from people who are making inquiries. There is no date yet. Whether they're going to wait a few more weeks, whether they're going to wait until the borders are open. They're not processing applications from overseas. Perhaps they're going to wait till that starts again. I think more likely perhaps another couple of months maybe they'll open the EOI draws for skilled migrant. But we really don't know. Same with parent category. Parent category more likely to be waiting for longer because generally the people who are applying under parent category are typically overseas and they're not eligible for visas under the Immigration Act while the borders are closed. Now, the big thing here, of course, that's come through in the last few days, it was proposed a few weeks ago and it's now been gone through government, is that there is now assistance for foreign nationals who are impacted in New Zealand. By default, of course, if you're here on a work visa and you lose your job, you're not entitled to support under our work and income, our employment benefits sort of schemes. But New Zealand, we understand that you've been here, you've been helpful to us, been great for us. We encourage people to come here to take these jobs that we can't fill. So we don't want to sort of leave you stuck. So there is now finance being put in place to assist you with costs, with home care, that sort of thing, so that you have somewhere to live, you have some way of eating. It isn't going to be the level probably that New Zealanders might get, but it's there to try and help and try and support. We don't want to sort of leave you stuck with no way of surviving. So they provided a process. I'll provide a link in the link for this video. It's the COVID-19 financial support tool. Now, a couple of things. It's not open to New Zealand residents and citizens. You have your own process for that. There is an encouragement that you do go and talk to your own consul, your own embassy. If you are stuck here, you need assistance, talk to them, see whether they can help. Most likely they can help with perhaps getting you back home, but actually staying or being in New Zealand still, that's probably outside what they can do. And I can also understand, just on a sort of personal note, that you'd probably rather be, say, in New Zealand, where things are relatively under control, than some countries who are unfortunately really being hit hard by COVID-19. So I think we understand why you'd want to be here, at least for a little bit longer. Now, for the support program, it's going to go through several questions. We're looking at my screen now. They're going to look at, were you on a work visa, student visa, or visitor visa as of the 23rd of March? Now, that was the day, of course, that New Zealand closed its borders. We went down to level 4 lockdown. So, yes or no, you should choose yes to that, if you were, of course. It looks at whether you can return to your home country. Now, if you can, the intention is that you should return to your home country if you cannot survive here. Now, of course, as I said, it's not possible to everybody to return home there, whether it's closed borders, whether it is just absolute issues there with COVID. And so if you can't return to your home country, then it looks at whether you have difficulty in paying for your living costs. Now, it's not a situation where if you're here on that visa, you can't go home, they'll give you money. It really is there just to help those who really need support. So you don't have savings, or your only savings are to buy your ticket home. So they're not going to ask you to spend your flight money to survive off. And of course, you have no income, or it's not enough to cover the reasonable costs. So your costs for accommodation, for food, for power, that sort of thing. So if that's the case, then they'll ask you whether you can look for other ways for living costs. So is there funds offshore? Can you talk to friends and family, community, church groups? Can your college, university help you out? And of course your consulate or embassy, whether they can provide support. Now, as I said, this is not open to everybody. It's not sort of this free money for anybody in that situation. It's looking for those who actually genuinely need help. So please, only apply for this if you actually do need help. And you're going to be asked to provide evidence, so some sort of to show that you have this. Here's your outgoings, here's your costs, here's your income if you are earning. This is how much you're making. These are your costs. This is why you can't afford things. And for those who may have had their hours cut down due to COVID, so still have their job but not making what they used to make. Or those who, of course, have lost their job, and this is definitely there to help you get through until either your job picks up or you find new work or you have an opportunity to actually go home. So it is there. So I'll provide a link to the support tool there. There's a quick form you fill out to just make sure that you actually are eligible for it, and then you can make the application to get the funds. Now, the application itself is being done by the New Zealand Government in association with the Red Cross. So if you see the Red Cross symbol on the page with the New Zealand Government symbol, that's the reason why it's sort of been done in conjunction with them. So that's really the only main news that will affect probably a few of you. The smaller news, actually the change to the operational manual, so the immigration rules, is just around the marine crew arriving into New Zealand over the border, what the allowances are. There is an allowance for those who have to change, so say the ship's coming into New Zealand, they need to fly in so they can then go onto the ship. So there's allowances there to come into the country for that purpose, as long as you go directly to the ship to board the ship. So that's the only change to sort of make that a bit easier. Won't likely affect very many of you watching this. If you are affected and you need help, let us know. Otherwise I won't bore the rest of you with that change. One thing we are expecting, and we're hoping to get through in the next days or weeks, hopefully days, more likely weeks, is that they are still looking at doing the changes by the end of the month to the essential skills work visa. Of course, that was the change where they're getting rid of ANZSCO, so the need to compare your job to this list of jobs and what jobs are supposed to do. So if you are an accountant, then these are the tasks which accountants do. Problem with that list is that the list is a bit old-fashioned, and jobs don't often fit into these sort of very nicely written boundaries anymore. Quite often, especially if you have an employer who is small, you might have a job that actually covers two of those roles and doesn't really fit into one. If your employer is very large, you might find that part of that job is done by its entire department, and you're just doing another part. So it doesn't work. So they're getting rid of that, thank goodness. I was thinking it might be delayed further, but they are saying the end of this month is when that is going to start, which means that it will no longer be a test of does your job fit this, what ANZSCO defines your job as being, but rather they're going to look at how much you're making and the area you are in and who's available for the job. So it's going to be labour market test, so your employer has to run the advertisement to show that there's no people available for your role in the area, the salary level, and of course the area. So if you're out of Auckland, more likely to get the visa. Inside Auckland, a bit more difficult. If you're depending on the salary level, will then depend on how long the visa is for. So they haven't given us the figures yet, but we're thinking sort of could be $22 or $25 per hour or higher. It could be a 3 or a 5 year visa. Below that could be a 1 year visa. We are guessing here on what those figures are going to be, but that's how it's probably going to work. So you're still going to have this 1 year visas for the lower, which is lower skilled jobs, but then that will be the lower paying jobs. The 3 year visas for the most jobs in the middle, and the 5 year visas for the very high paying jobs. And that still looks as that's going to be how it's going to work, but it'll be based on the income solely rather than on the job type as it currently is. So that is today's update. Not quite what it was last week, but hopefully a bit of use. Looking to again do a video once we have the essential skills visa changes and any other changes we see coming through Immigration New Zealand through this turbulent time that we're living in. So kia kaha to you all. Have a fantastic rest of the day, great weekend, and we'll see you next week.